Hi guys, welcome back to the podcast. We're here again with Shabaaz. We're going to be going over some of the topics that we missed out on last time due to the audio failure. So we started off before talking about the morality in martial arts and really the idea that it's been tainted throughout the years. So Shabaaz, what's your idea on this?
Yeah, so I think last time we were talking about traditional martial arts and then modern MMA as we have it. Um, I think the UFC played a huge role in changing a lot of the nonsense that you saw that was associated in martial arts. You can see videos all over YouTube of certain type of people who thought they had maybe some special powers, and then all of a sudden they go up against a pro fighter and they
Mm.
get absolutely decimated. And some of the videos are actually quite sad to watch. It'll be like an
Yeah,
old guy and he's just realizing everything he was, led to believe is
it's
just
like
nonsense.
the one with the. Do you remember the sumo wrestler? And there was I think it was a taekwondo guy.
I haven't seen that one now.
He just booted the sumo wrestler straight in the face, and the sumo wrestler's tooth went flying out the
Oh, okay.
cage.
No, there was this other guy. He thought that he can like push power onto people, and then
Yeah.
I think his record was a few hundred and oh. And this one so-called MMA fighter, I don't recall him having like a major record. He's pretty like much an amateur guy. He just smashed him up real bad, and the guy was some old guy. And literally, there was one bit where he was doing this. He was watching himself bleed,
Yeah,
and he was coming into terms with his own mortality. It was
yeah, yeah.
quite like,
Have you said there was one in? Is that the one in China? Where,
I think it was in
yeah,
China.
yeah,
Yeah,
the guy was a Tai Chi guy, and he was
yeah, yeah.
beating up.
But
Yeah,
no disrespect to the art form of that, but it was just when people said there's combat application to a lot of these things,
mm,
that's where it gets a bit tricky. Now, like I said, the UFC got rid of a lot of that nonsense. In the beginning, some of the fights were a lot like this style versus that style, and then I think there was things were distilled from that. So from that they took the best way of punching from one form, or best way of kicking from another
mm,
form, movement, conditioning, elbows and knees, and they kind of mushed the whole thing together. So
mm,
now typically the average fighter will have, say, a boxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing background combined with a wrestling or like a BJJ.
mm.
So there's a few things. You nearly always have a stand up and a ground game, and then like different variations of those. Um, Now traditional martial arts, they're still good, but um, I think a lot of places now they move towards a model of teaching where there's the best of different things.
So what would you say about really this idea that martial arts has now become somewhat the traditional aspects now are quite obsolete, really.
So there's a side of me that wants to agree with that, but there's a purpose to some of the traditional elements that are in the martial arts. Um, it structures the way that you do things, kata forms, things like that. So there's some element there. But the only thing that I say is when people say that that's translatable,
Mm,
or for an example, doing only punching and kicking in the air is going to help you actually in sparring in combat, that's where I think it goes wrong. And back to the previous point, I think that's what the UFC demonstrated
mm.
over there. The systems where there was most emphasis on actual sparring, on full contact sparring, those were the systems that sort of people succeeded with. So it's less, it's more to do with combat application than anything else, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's very true. I find that within martial arts, you get a lot of hocus pocus things. Like there's like very you look at some martial arts and you're like, that doesn't, it's not going to work. It's like, for example, some martial arts they teach you like to stand still as your opponent comes and fights you, like in a straight stance and like move.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
I don't see that
You're
happening
going to get
anytime
punched in the
soon.
face real bad.
I,
That's not going
I,
to
I
help
see
you.
I see you getting a head kick
Yeah,
straight to your face, or even like someone's shin wrapped around your jaw. Because
yeah.
if you lean back and someone throws that heavy kick,
Liz, I don't know why. I'm trying to give people the benefit of the doubt here. So the benefit of the doubt, I'm really trying to think. If it was for a drill,
yeah,
like a reaction drill, because I remember once ages ago when I was training, it was in a traditional camp, and they turned the lights off in the
yeah,
room.
oh,
You don't really need to learn how to train with the lights off, but it was fun. I'm not going to lie.
yeah,
A lot of people got punched in the face,
yeah,
but that sort of unagi ninjutsu like
yeah, yeah.
ability that doesn't work. No one
Out
has
of
that.
nowhere, you
Yeah.
just see someone doing a
Yeah.
backflip.
To this day, I still can't like defend myself in like pitch black. Yeah,
Yeah,
but there was some like element, I guess, which was being worked, spatial awareness, things like that. So I guess for that particular drill, standing
mm,
still, moving your shoulder out the way with your hands down.
mm,
If you're working maybe like split second timing, reactions, yes. But again, I agree to the point that a lot of this is often sold as you'll then be able to gain some superhuman power where a guy in the street will have your hands down, you'll be able to like Neo from the Matrix kind of dodge it.
It's a bit of like a Ponzi scheme, really, when people teach you that. Like, don't you find like it's a bit of a money grab? I think if anybody's watching this and you see someone, I don't know, 35, they say they're a black belt and they're severely overweight and they're teaching you some Tai Chi moves.
Lewis Hayes is going to get a bunch of
that is a
fat instructors coming towards him. So I will say that
they're the best at kata, though. You can just get them to do kata. But if you want them to teach you self-defense, well, I don't know what to tell you.
There's limited accountability, and I think some coaches have started doing something where it was easier to teach a certain type of lesson. For sparring, number one, you yourself need to be in relatively good shape. It's difficult to teach. From strictly, this is a very like martial arts instructor perspective. It's a bit more difficult to run those kind of lessons because people are going to fall down. I remember in the beginning, I used to be in sparring every single class when there was only, say, 10 students. And when you have 50 of them in a room, you don't want to be doing that. And I learned the lesson the hard way. I just turn around and I'd see some kid on the floor, and so you need to be. It's a lot more difficult to run those lessons. So it is the easier option to do it sort of way one with just punching and kicking in the air. But you're right. As long as you're told. If the coach is telling you you're going to learn this to be able to defend yourself, then they're lying to you. Okay, and I think, Lewis, you bring up a very interesting point. Look at the BMI of the coach. If he can't see his feet, just don't pay the guy. Okay,
it's not bad to say that. I think we need to be realistic here with this idea of fat shaming. Right, I find it very weird, but in my mind, here's the thing: people have different body types. Right, I'm quite big. I've got big shoulders, quite broad, right? You see a lot of rugby players quite big and broad. But the difference is that you can tell that they're in shape. Do you know what I mean? If you look at someone that's actually obese and overweight, you can tell they've let themselves go. And for them to then teach you to get fit is somewhat of an oxymoron. It doesn't make sense to me.
I would give a dispensation if, let's just say, the coach had an injury. Or if they were like a national champion back in the day. And sometimes a lot of people, when they've had like a hard fight career, just want to give up. And not give up, but they're like, look, I just want to enjoy my junk food now. I've had enough of training camps and weight cuts. That's different. But if they don't have that fighting pedigree behind them, and it's never been proven, and on top of that, like you're describing, then there may be an issue over there. I totally agree with that. Plus, I would add a dotted line for that. If you're not injured and there's not anything else which has happened in your life major, if you truly love your art, love the thing that you're doing, you're going to be practicing it. And cut a long story short, the point of martial arts is not to lose weight, but it's a side effect. So if you're good at doing it, inevitably you will lose weight. When people I get calls all the time. I'm interested in learning martial arts. Oh, why? And then the kind of responses they have are, I want to learn to defend myself. I want to get in shape. I want to lose weight. Okay, no problem. Those are all side effects of it. You learn the combat system, and as a result, you'll burn 1,000 calories in the class. But we don't aim to burn 1,000 calories in the class. That's not the point of it.
Just what happens.
Neither do we aim for your biceps or triceps or chest to grow any bigger. It's not bodybuilding. But after you do 100 press ups,
100 sprawls,
it's a side effect. So the side effect of you teaching your martial arts or training in it is that it should manifest in the way that you're looking.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. I think there's quite a famous kickboxing coach in Holland. I think he's trained Badr Hari, and he's overweight. I'm not sure if he's still alive, but he is overweight. But the difference is that his results speak for itself.
Yeah.
So if you've got the results, sure. But if I am then walking into your class and I'm seeing a blue belt who is trained for maybe 2 years, beat up a black belt that's going to black belt classes, black belt sessions, and then beating them up, it's very confusing to me to see that.
I say the same thing because I trained in Eastern Europe in this training camp, and it was a wrestling coach there, and he looked really like out of shape. But he had such strong fighting pedigree, and all of his students were national level champions. That's something different. Like, he was one of those people that he's been training very hard his whole life, and then he's got to a point where he's just like, you know what, I'm here for teaching. I've had enough of that. So that's different. But yeah, I think the first example is a different person altogether. So just a shout out to, if you're looking for a club, look at the instructor, look at the students, look at the back row or the front row, depending on how it's worked. But look at the black belts or the senior students, and think, if I spend 3, 4, 5, 6, however many years, do I want the result to be that? If they're exceptional, then you have your answer. And if they look like they're not really in shape and the techniques are sloppy, and then that kind of speaks for itself. Little
Yeah,
tip.
that is very true. I mean, if you look at you could even look at just the maybe the black belts, or you could even look at the people that are mid level. So like,
I've got a question. How long does it take to get a black belt, folks?
oh,
So
if
all the
you're
different martial artists that are
yeah,
watching.
if you're listening to this and you have a child and your child is 12 and they have a black belt from some coach, all I'm saying to you is that you need to go to that coach, you spar him yourself, and then you'll find out if that black belt is worth anything. Because for me,
Yeah.
a 12-year-old getting a black belt makes no sense. It makes no sense. One, you don't know really anything really about life, because martial arts is more about your journey through life, through difficulty. I mean, you can see
So
it.
some clubs will give a provisional black belt.
Yeah,
They call
but
it. They have a pole down, or they
that's
give it a certain
to me
name.
that's like a Legoland license. Do you know what I mean? Like, what is the point in that? It's just here you go. Thank you for taking part. But for me, I think like I like Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
What about duration? Yeah, so this is a good conversation. So in say BJJ and a lot of the judo and a lot of the grappling martial
Yeah,
arts, I will pay testimony to this that it takes an exceptionally long period, up to
you
10
have
years.
to be good. You have
Yeah.
to be good. There's no cutting corners.
But what about the no names mentioned, but like this 2.5 years black belt?
2.5 years black belt.
Sometimes you're grading every 2 months. There's all sorts of belts. There's like a
Yeah,
camouflage belt. There's a gold belt. There's a every stripe on a belt. There's 20 something
yeah.
belts.
That's just ridiculous to
It's a
me.
good way to make money, coaches.
Yeah, if you want to make a lot of money, then do that. But morally, you're a scumbag. So, do you know what I mean? Because if you've got, say for instance, you get a lot of kids now that are looking to get into martial arts,
Yeah, totally.
and these kids, you have to build them up. That as a coach, that is your responsibility to build them into a good human,
Yeah.
and someone that can defend themselves. You can't just build them into just a wuss, because really what you're doing is you're giving them false hope, right? You're telling them, oh, you can do this, you can do that, you can throw combinations
I see what you're doing.
that are 20 hit combos, and you're standing there going, you can't really realistically throw 20 hit combos.
It takes some time to mature as well. So I
Yeah.
see the point over there where, like, in 2 years, okay, there are some exceptions to the rule. There are some, like, so in our club, you
Yeah.
know, one of the green belts, I think he's managed to get halfway to a black belt in a year or so. But he's an exception to the rule.
Yeah.
There are people who have maybe a background from before, or their fitness is incredible, or they're just very, very fast learners.
Or they're dedicated. Like, they'll come in,
They're dedicated.
they'll
they do their
train
homework.
all the time. They'll train outside.
But-
they'll train in, like all the time.
Again, this is like a few here and there, but when you're talking about 90% of the people
Yeah.
that you're coming through get a black belt in a couple of years, then there's a major issue over there.
Yeah.
And to a deeper point, it undermines the status of what this is. You know, one thing sort of very interesting about black belt, I used to say to the junior guys for motivation, you can go anywhere in the world. Forget about styles for a moment now, but I remember once I was on an excursion in the desert, in the Sahara Desert, and there were some Bedouin people there, and I was kind of speaking some broken English / Arabic to them, and I mentioned I was training. I said black belt, and black belt, like he knew exactly. You could go to the most obscure place on the world, and they know what this is, which is interesting because maybe a couple of generations ago, no one knew what black belt meant. But slowly, when you start watering it down, so this is not an attack on any particular club or system or anything like this, but to the man or woman that's earned a hardcore 8 years of training, went through grit and grime to get that status, and the world knows what that is, and then suddenly you start watering it down and hand them out. Harsh statement, but you're selling it. You're basically selling something which is meant to be of some esteem.
I'd say that too. I think that with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and like for me, Jiu-Jitsu, there's no shortcuts. Like,
it hasn't happened yet, I will say this, but
it's very hard because with Jiu-Jitsu, if you don't know your stuff, a black belt will pull up to your gym and be like, "Hello, I've come from wherever, and now I'm going to train." And that's the thing. Like, the thing is with Jiu-Jitsu, you can't half-ass it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no middle ground. Like, you will get humiliated. You will get tapped. You will.
It's because
be
it's
tired.
combat specific.
Yeah.
Like, very rarely will you not roll spar in a BJJ class. But again, the problem. I'm a stand-up coach, but one of the problems with stand-up is many places they have these funny rules where you can only spar from blue belt and above. Or they really like make it something exotic when it's not. It's just punch someone in the face.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that should be what we do on lesson number 1 on your free trial lesson. You just get one punch in the face.
Yeah.
You realize it's not the end of the world, If you've never been punched in the face,
Here's some CTE, and then you're sorted out, brain damage, whatever. You know what I mean?
not hard, but like if you've never
Yeah,
ever
obviously.
in your entire life been punched in the face, it's an experience which you really need to
Yeah,
look
exactly.
into. Just
I find it weird when people tell me that when they get punched in the face.
contact Lewis Hayes, he'll sort it out, no problem.
But the thing is that people will come to a class and they'll be like, I don't want to get punched in the face, and I'm just standing there like, why come to a combat class? Because realistically, you're on the street, right?
Or kicked or anywhere
Yeah.
else in the body.
Someone comes up to you and they start a fight, right? And this is a situation where you can use your hands, because we know on the street nowadays people could do whatever they want. They could just pull something up. But say, for instance, with your hands, you get punched in the face. Now, if you've never been punched in the face before, or you've never been punched,
it's startling.
Yeah.
You can be, oh, what's this? What's this
Yeah.
feeling like? Yeah.
what about if you get rocked?
You taste like this
Yeah.
metallic taste in your nose and your mouth from the blood, and you're wobbly, and then your balance is all in coordination, and your eyes. So yeah, if it's never happened under that pressure, it can be something bad. So you have to get used to this. So again, full contact sparring is really, really important. I've got a question.
I think key there with full contact sparring, you don't have to go 100%.
I'm going to ask something which is going to annoy the world. Grappling in a street fight in London.
Okay. So
when his mates are around the corner, or he's got something in his pocket. I don't know.
I think
I respect BJJ to the nth degree, but it's something I hear a lot where it's like, oh, this is better for self-defense or that.
Wrestling for me is probably will be the best.
Do you want to be on the concrete in somewhere in central London at night time?
But with wrestling, right, and I think jiu-jitsu too, is you have to apply it. So for me, like if I fall on the ground in jiu-jitsu, I'm taught how to get back up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taught if I need to get up, I can stomp on the kneecap to get back up, so I can come back up.
Uh-huh.
Now, if someone then tells me that for jiu-jitsu, I'm somehow going to just start doing like a rear naked choke or a triangle on someone in a street fight, one, he could have a knife, so I'm just going to die. He could have mates, they could come around the corner, beat me up. So realistically, it is something where you have to apply it to the situation. Now, wrestling, I think's quite good, because with wrestling, you could grab someone, like in Muay Thai with clinch.
Yeah.
You grab them, trip them, and throw them, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
And then you can deal with them. You keep moving. But for me, I would say, you have to apply it to the situation.
I'll say this, with say,
because you can do standing kimuras.
This is not exactly, and this is not even a Brazilian. It's any sort of close range combat where I remember I went to this a seminar once with a very senior fighter in Kyokushin, and he was saying punching people in the face will get you in trouble from a legal perspective, but if you choke someone out, there's no bruises, right? You don't even need to fully choke them out if you just spin them around. And
I think if they view it differently. So I think if you're attacked and the person is trying to actually end
careful
your life,
legal advice. Now,
I don't know this. I'm not a legal advisor. Don't take my word for anything. Look, if you want to listen to a legal person, go find a lawyer. Right? I'm not that person. I'm not that guy. Right? That covers me on the legal side.
Yeah, there you go.
Good.
We're good now. We're
all good now. Right? So
you stomp in his face.
Yeah. Don't do that either. But I think if you tap someone, so basically, if someone attacks me, and then I tap them out, like grab them and hold them, because you can put the choke on and put the choke off.
Yeah.
So you can restrain them in a way.
That's what I'm saying. Someone goes in for, let's just say they're swinging wildly. You block parry the punch away, and you literally grab them, you spin them round, and now you got them in kind of like a standing rear naked choke. You can put pressure on and off, and you can almost do it in a controlled way where you can say, look, you're going to stop now, I'm going to send you to sleep. It's one of the two. But with a punch and a kick, it's very different.
It's like break damage
you're going to break their nose, and it's going to be very violent, and there's going to be fluids, and there's going to be... and I'm thinking for like self-defense, maybe even at school, both kids are going to get excluded.
Yeah,
it's happened in our club before.
I think that's ridiculous.
It's archaic rules. But
sometimes in schools though.
There was a video. Sorry, I know there's a sort of some safeguarding, so I cannot say names or exact details or exact school, but it was in the West London area.
Yeah.
A video was made of a student, and there was clearly like 5 guys came up to him and they were pushing him. So they initiated the attack. There's 5 of them. The guy can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
He valiantly, when push came to shove, he threw a punch back and he took a few of them down. And then there was like scuffle, and they got kind of torn apart. But both of the entities got excluded for it. So the 5 boys plus the 1 victim.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's right. That's disgraceful. It undermines what we do in martial arts schools, because
it makes kids. To be honest with you, I think it gives the kids the idea that they can't defend themselves.
Yeah, effectively.
And what happens is that if a man can't, man or woman can't defend themselves with his hands, what is he then going to defend himself with?
There's a quote from Malcolm X: "It's criminal to teach a man not to defend himself if he's the victim of brutality." Obviously, that is in a greater sort of political, philosophical way. But on
you can apply it here, can't
but
you?
on the smaller scale, if you are being victimized, there's only so much diplomacy, and we're not even talking about the saying things. You're now in a corner. There is more than one of them, and you're going to take a beating. Now, talking about my son and my daughter, the immediate logical response is obviously you swing back, because you don't know if the person on the other side just wants to swing for you and slap you a little bit, make a video, or wants to literally do some damage with a few of his friends. You don't know the variable over here. So your job is to fight back and get out of that situation. Never do I say stand there and turn this into like some, old martial arts flick where you're sending people flying. No, it's not about that.
You got Donnie Yen in the background.
No, it's not. You're trying to defend yourself, get rid of the immediate threat, and then go away, run away. There's nothing wrong about running away from a situation like this. You don't know what the follow-up is going to be. It's not like a tournament you're fighting. There's no medal to be won here. So that's really important. But what's dangerous is you saying that you are going to get in trouble for even throwing back. That's dangerous, in my opinion.
It is crazy, man.
And it's actually something I'm really happy to say that our national governing body support us on. They give us legal support for this to intervene when schools are throwing these archaic rules around.
Yeah, NACMAS is really good. They'll stick up for your students. So if you've got a martial art club,
be affiliated with them.
Be affiliated. NACMAS will make sure that your students are safe. And the key word that what I just used there was safe. Like, you have to think about it this way: if you are in school and you're getting picked on and bullied and beaten up, and the teachers aren't getting involved, teachers not doing anything.
Yeah, that's port of call one. Yeah. Teachers and parents are port of call number one.
Yeah.
But we're talking about a situation where, and we all know it, if we put all nonsense to a side, we know, we've all been to schools and we know situations. Sometimes you cannot get out of it. We're talking about that situation. Literally.
Especially with young boys. Young boys will just be young boys. They'll just, testosterone going through.
It doesn't matter what time it is or what country it is, it's always the same thing. Yeah. And we're talking about that situation. There's a time where there's no other options and you have to defend yourself.
Exactly.
So yeah,
that's one of the things. You sometimes if you have to defend yourself, then you got to defend yourself. There's no two ways around it.
Agree.
From our teachings, would you say that potentially there's quite been a difference in mindset change? Because you've taught me from when I was quite young.
Yeah.
Has there been?
Yeah.
Because it's been how long you've been teaching me for 8 years?
9 years.
9 years. Yeah. I was once like this.
Now he's got a beard. Look at him.
Now I've got a beard. Look. But for me, I've seen a change. But because you've been a teacher for so long, what is the change that you've?
Yeah, 100. So there's a couple of things, and I think you forget teaching. Parents can see this as well, who have got children sort of at different ages. The first thing I would say is attention span is a very obvious one. It's not just children, it's adults as well. The attention span has reduced greatly. And I think we know roughly what the answer for that is. Social media, people need instant gratification. They want likes and all this kind of stuff. And if it's not there straight away, they get really whingy about it. Before, once upon a time, if you needed to do something, let's just say you needed some information, you'd have to walk down to a library, open the right book, and then find that. Now it's already there. So in one way,
talks about this.
In one way, it's deserved. Like we want things straight away. If you want food, you can order it on an app. If you like, everything is very, very immediate, right? But the other thing is, there's also been, I think, a softening of the mindset of a lot of young people. And I speak to a lot of students about this, and I still don't know what the exact cause of this is. Maybe that there's lots of stresses in the world and things that they tend to worry about, or maybe it's a detachment from the fact that there's a positive association with going through pain to make you better. Now, that is probably linked very closely to the instant gratification, because people don't like going through pain. It's our natural disposition. We don't want to be in pain. But now, more so than ever, you see the first thing a child, unfortunately, when they say, I'm going through a bit of a hard time, they'll automatically put something negative on them, like some negative psychology talk about depression and anxiety. And don't get me wrong, these are genuine things, but it cannot be that 33%, 1 in 3 individuals is stuck in this state. Often what I say is this is a temporary transience you're going through. This is it's not a permanent condition. You're going to go through moments when you're happy, moments when you're sad. But the moments when you're sad and the moments when you're going through pain, these are what build you.
Yeah, I mean, I had an anxiety attack midway through my black belt grading, and I just firmed it.
But that's the thing. Now, people don't want to do that. They want to fixate on that pain and almost create like a victim mentality around that pain.
I think
when it's a good thing. Not that there's limitations to everything, and people can decontextualize everything. But I think genuinely, you cannot learn, you cannot get better. The old saying, with no pain, no gain. And to a deeper point, I would say this: we mentioned the black belt grading. Yeah, in a black belt grading, there's no positive motivation. It's all negative.
There's literally just like go home at any moment. And what was it? Amir was eating donut right in front of my face.
Pretty funny. But,
that was not funny. There was a donut right.
When you're on the other side.
Yeah, it was a caramel donut too, which was banging.
Sounds really good.
I had that straight after too, didn't he? He offered it out.
Yeah, see, he was a nice guy, so he wasn't malicious. He offered it at 4 hours later.
But I grabbed it straight away. I was like, "There's no chance that I'm missing out."
But the thing with the black belt is the motivation should be internal, and maybe this is like a difference in East and Western philosophy, but there is a thinking that everything becomes internal, introspection, meditation. These are the most inside things that you can do. And you look within, you don't rely on someone else like my teacher or anything like that. You have to be strong in your own self and know who you are. Now, this is a concept in martial arts thrown around all the time. Know who you are. My coach used to say, show me who you are in the middle of a difficult drill. And I get it now. It's the little voice in your head. That voice starts speaking most when you're tired, when you're in pain, and you cultivate it in those moments. So don't think that this is anything bad. When you're on press up 105, there's no need to do 105 press ups, by the way.
Yeah.
But mentally speaking, that voice will say, oh, just stop now. When you're on round number 15, that voice will say, stop now. But that's where you create the scar tissue, which is going to enable you next time to go that extra inch further. But unfortunately, going back to the original point in a very roundabout way, pain is not necessarily a bad thing. It builds you, and you have to bring yourself to that. We do that artificially in the martial arts class by doing, excessive numbers of things, usually like in excess of 100. The creation of that scar tissue is what will make you stronger. So back to the point, you need to have a positive association that know that after every hardship will come an ease, and it will not be a permanent condition, and that you work yourself through it.
Yeah, that's very true. I think you just have to deal with it and stop moaning. There's too many kids, not naming names, but they just moan.
It's just a dilution of strength.
Yeah, it's just. I remember going to your class and moaning was not an option. It was just get on with it, and that's what I enjoyed. Like, if you want to become a fighter or if you want to really do anything in life.
But because sorry to interrupt, but because they don't hear this so often from their schools, maybe the parents as well, I notice they're very receptive to this. Yeah. So when a student complains and I say with a straight face, I don't care, like it's really weird, but it's motivational.
I tell them I'm going to give them cookies and milk. I say, I'll order you some creams.
But because they don't hear that kind of stuff anymore. So actually, I've never had a student be offended by any of this kind of stuff. They really like it. It's really weird.
It's quite funny when you see their face and they're like, wait, what? You don't care? And it's I don't.
I really don't care.
I actually don't care. Yeah. Like, the thing is, what they don't understand.
Carry on, drill. Let's go.
We're not like a school teacher.
Yeah. That's the first thing.
We're not a counsellor. We're not your parents. We are your coach.
Yeah.
Now, your coach has one objective: make you a better human. 2, improve your physicality, and 3, teach you martial arts.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're the 3. None of this, right, requires me to care about the fact that your little toe hurts.
Or you're going to be in temporary amount of pain.
Yeah. Or that your pinky has a bruise. I don't care about that because it doesn't matter. Okay. I've got loads of bruises. I've got my shin is literally, it's got jagged edges, right? From the amount of times I've kicked someone.
There was this happens all the time. Parents ask me this question. They'll say, my son usually actually is, they struggle with the anger. They have anger management issues, and I'm even afraid to bring them into this class. Is it going to get worse? Maybe they're going to hurt someone in the class. And the first thing I laugh a little bit.
Yeah.
And I say it's a very simple model over here because they want to know how we're going to get around this. Well, number one, you need to realize that you are a tiny, tiny fish in a big pond, and in your day-to-day life, you never need to test the fact that you think you may be a superhuman or you can beat everyone up. So people walk around with this sort of image in their head, especially young boys. And first time they come into the class, it's very simple. Put them up against one of the senior students over there. Go on, prove it now. You have a black belt over there, prove it.
I had one guy that he came in, still one of our students, and it's quite funny to me. He was a black belt after 2 years, and we started doing kumite, right? and I told him punch me full force in the stomach. He punched me full force. I kept going forward, and he just goes,
What are you doing? What's
that doesn't.
my strength
Yeah.
doesn't
He
exist.
was like, that doesn't hurt.
You
I
have
said, nah, this does not hurt me. I just kept going forward, didn't I?
People ask me, goes, on the first class, what do you do if someone's behaving like that? I say, well, I have to beat them down a little bit.
Yeah.
Standard protocol.
Yeah.
So many times I've had it. Maybe some of the people who are watching this remember their first class, and they're like, why did coach just smash me up? There was a purpose to it.
Yeah.
So sometimes people
It's
come
your
with
ego, isn't it?
This is bravado, this is ego,
Yeah.
and you get stomped down. Now, one of two things can happen. You only have two decisions over here. Number one, you become humble. You gain some humility, and you realize, oh, you know what? I don't know everything, and these people are this way, and these people are walking around. They're not like psychos. They're walking around in a very humble way. They conduct themselves in a nice mannerism, and I want to be like them. Yeah. Or option number two, and trust me, you don't go to option number two too many times. Yeah. Let me try again, and just smash someone. Just carry on my way. No problem. I'll put you with another person, and once you've been knocked down about 3 or 4 times, the psychology will disappear like that.
Yeah.
And I get it from usually like the mothers. How did you fix him so quickly in one lesson? It wasn't. It was it was violence, but in a way,
and violence they understand.
It just put all that negative energy into something positive.
Yeah. Sometimes some people just need to punch something, and they need to have that physical.
So many people walking around never been punched in the face, like we said. It fixes you really quickly.
But like some people, they just need to go to maybe a boxing class and just smash a bag up, and then they release how they feel.
But you also realize how dangerous some people are. Like, sometimes when I spar at EMAR, the club I'm at, it's a martial art called Kyokushin, and you spar with some people, and you're like, you know what? They're just dangerous mammals walking around.
Yeah.
You don't know what some people are capable of, how conditioned they are, how strong they are. And people are untrained don't know this at all. They don't realize, number one, how weak they are, and number two, how potentially strong that someone else can be. Because we're all human beings, but honestly, it's superhuman.
Yeah.
The same thing that you can do to one person will easily kill them, like a hard conditioning drill. I'm talking about, look up Kyokushin conditioning, jumping on someone's stomach. I'm not talking about a foot. I'm talking about an 80-kilogram man jumping on someone's stomach, punching full onto the to the ribs. A normal human being, the connective tissues and the density of their bones will not allow them to do that. They will get internal bleeding. They will get organs rupturing. But a trained individual, that won't happen. So in my opinion, literally, you train in a certain way and you gain superhuman ability. You've seen videos of people kicking down banana trees with their shin bone. It just happens.
It's just lots of conditioning.
The matrix of the bone becomes denser.
I think on the topic though of anger issues, I remember I'll tell you about the people that are involved in this story. Yeah. But so one of our students paired with another student, right?
No.
And this other student's very good. He's quite young. He's very good. We paired him with another student that's quite young, but he's taller than him, bigger than him. And the smaller guy was smashing up the bigger guy.
Yeah.
And because he just kept the issue is he can't throw punches properly, and so he got angry and started, because we were doing kumite, which is just body.
Bare knuckles.
Yeah. And then he ended up trying to punch the other guy in the face. So
bare
knuckle to the face, and that's not allowed in what we were doing.
In that particular sparring, yeah.
So what I did was I said, he's definitely, something's going on with his ego, he's getting angry. So I pulled the other guy out, the smaller guy, and I said, you're going to go with me now. And I gave him one shot to the stomach, and he said, I don't want to do this anymore. And it wasn't even a hard punch.
Ego cured.
Yeah, ego was very cured.
Ego cured in 1 second.
But what I think he realised there was, because I spoke to him after, because he got quite upset about the whole thing, because you can't let your emotions get the best of you in moments like that. When you're sparring or when you're doing anything really, if you allow your emotions to take over, you're then going to be angry. You're going to be too sad to do anything. So if you let your emotions go to the extreme, you're not really going to be able to do the things that you need to do. You have to be aware of your emotions. Obviously, emotional intelligence is quite important. You have to be aware how you're feeling in that moment. Be aware I am sad. Be aware that I am upset. Be aware I am anxious. But the point is, you don't want to go too far off. You want to stop it and go, what can I do to reduce this or take control of it?
And what's also important is the 360 picture. So just, we're not like absolute nut jobs where you just beat someone down. Afterwards, there's a talk about it as well.
Yeah.
So, but one thing I think is lacking actually, a lot of people where they have like this maybe this hypertherapeutic approach to everything, where they talk and they talk and they talk and they talk and nothing comes out of it. So I guess our approach is manual fix,
Yeah.
and then we go back and
Yeah, then
we explain what happened, because
Yeah.
like I remember the instance you're talking about. He went outside and he was a bit upset,
Yeah,
so we
yeah,
sit
yeah,
down
yeah.
like arm on the shoulder, here, grab some water, let's talk now, let's have a conversation. I'm not going to leave you in this void of being upset.
Yeah.
And I swear, at that moment when someone is humbled and all the nonsense is out of their mind, that's when they really, like, so to speak, empty their cup and
Yeah,
are
we're
ready
not
to
scumbags. We're not just going to leave them to cry. Do you know what I mean?
No, but the other approach that you see a lot
Yeah.
of the time is talking, 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 and no action. And then, like, again, I get parents saying, "Oh, in one lesson's time, they've managed to change my child all of a sudden very quickly." How
But for a lot of young boys, I don't think that works. A lot of young boys,
No, I agree.
a lot of
For
young
a lot.
boys, we like as a young man, I'm 21, so I consider myself still as a young man. I remember when I was younger, and for me, the things that I understood was quite physical, so like wrestling, like, and just being humble. Really, is probably a key. You could talk, but as a young man, you're quite.
But you need mentors.
Yeah,
as well.
mentors.
So the problem is, two people can say the same advice, and no disrespect to person number one. Person number one could be like, there's variance as well, but it may be a teacher who's in school, but significantly older, doesn't really go to the gym, maybe overweight, stuck in the same sort of job for 35 years. So from different perspectives, both from they do not excel in pretty much anything, right? And I'm not saying that's all people that may be that type of mentor, but there's certainly a stereotype which I think we've all known, right? That person's giving you the same advice. But sir, I know how much money you're on. It's on the government's website. You've done the exact same thing for 35 years. You never excelled in anything, in, say, in academia. You're not a doctor of anything, or you do not hold a prestigious rank in anything. Neither are you a champion in business. Neither are you physically very powerfully built. And neither is there anything else which, from a traditional perspective of what you see as a man, would make me want to be like you. So this is a problem. So male mentors are few and far between, actually, and it takes a lot to build them. And then the other person could be like, have the opposite of that, and they say the same advice, and all of a sudden it clicks very, very quickly. Because I think young boys, especially young boys, they will look towards a person rather than the thing which is being said.
I would say that there's a lot of mentors, but the mentors that people go towards are flashy individuals that promote, you would say, a lifestyle which is realistically not the best lifestyle to live.
Yeah, see, that's the opposite, and we know what's happening right now on the internet. Like, there is a void, but in one way, I can't argue it, because the sense of these people are talking such sense, but the way they're saying it can be said a little bit better. I think.
So it's like some people will take a term. So what happens is people will take a general statement that you can agree with, and then they'll end up putting something on the end of it which is controversial, and then something that might potentially they actually believe in. And what happens is that you can't really distinguish between the unless you're intelligent enough. And I'm not saying a lot of people aren't intelligent, but as a young man, you're not going to know how to desync what the good statement is from the bad statement and where to go from.
You know what? I still stand by this, that that kind of a mentor is still going to put you into a sharper space, and they're needed. But it's almost like
you need a balance.
It's a symptom of a lack of. So in a way, I don't blame it at all. That's absolutely fine.
It's happened because I think there's not enough people out there that are really talking to these young men. Like you find it, like, even from any background. So you don't really find it. Like it's very rare for you to find an area in which these young men are finding mentors that they can communicate with. And
but then as it's sort of like
it's
controversial topics, things can be misconstrued as like a toxic masculinity, for example.
But sometimes I think that's used too much. I find that a lot. If you look at a young man, he doesn't understand the world yet, and I feel like if you push that idea that everything he does is toxic, and not explain to him that there are some things that are toxic, but we can work on that. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not your fault. Do you know what I mean? You can't, but that's not done enough, and I think that needs to be talked to them about that and explained to them. And I also think it's important too, because there's someone at my uni that's he's trying to do a organisation for mentors to try to get people in contact, like kids in school, to get mentors. And the thing is, like, which is a really good project. If you're listening, I've just shouted you out. So his name's Reese. So find him on LinkedIn. But basically, I find that mentors is an organic thing. So if you organically find a mentor, that mentor is going to put you in a better position. So for me, I would say there should be more implement to get young people into environments where they can network with
Yeah,
these people.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? I think if you have young people networking
yeah.
and talking to these people that they're inspired by, or talk to people that are within their field, or
Yeah.
things like that, then that would be good. I don't think them learning like poetry is really that important. I would prefer them to go talk to people that would change their lives, implement some sort of ideas that they could have in their head, maybe go to events which are promoted in their school where the local businesses come down and they come
It's
talk to
interesting
them.
you say that. So there's an event that usually 2 times a year in Harrow College
Yeah,
that they get industry experts, and I've been on that panel for a few years now, and it is, you can see it does actually make a difference, but it has to be a closer point of contact as well. It can't just be like 2 times a year.
yeah.
There's safeguarding issues and things like that as well, obviously,
Mm.
but
But it could be like school trips. Do you know what I mean? Like I found my uni through a school trip to the Emirates.
mm,
And then there's like stalls where you can talk to people.
mhm.
So I think things like that would be really good. I mean, like you could just have local things, and it could just be anyone. Forget young boys. We could have young women talk to women entrepreneurs too. Like you can have people from different backgrounds talking to you and mentoring you and telling you, oh look, this is what I learned. If you're going to go down,
LinkedIn is a good place.
yeah, LinkedIn is a good place.
You know
But
what's really strange? A lot of young, I understand it's not strange actually. Young people will have every single social media, but they won't have a LinkedIn. If I could tell myself back, 15 years ago, whatever, I would say just make one. Even if there's going to be, let's be honest, your experience is going to be effectively crap. But
yeah,
they just put something on there, and then start connecting with random people, and they will accept your request. And then it's very easy. You can see what companies they work for, what role they have. That's a really good thing, and it's something which I don't think is utilized by young people. They see it as, oh, that's what my dad or my mum's on LinkedIn.
yeah,
But it's honestly a place where you can meet professionals who excel in whatever field you could possibly imagine, for you to connect directly to, and you can message them directly. I mean, there will be, if a young person messaged me on LinkedIn, I'd be very perceptive to pick up to that, because I was like, this person's really gone out of their way.
yeah.
They're not just on TikTok and whatnot. They've actually joined a professional platform, and they're
The,
trying to move something.
the worst thing that's going to happen is they're just going to air your message. But realistically, that doesn't affect you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still living, aren't you? That's the thing that you got to realise is
Take a risk.
yeah, just take a risk. I mean, sometimes
I remember last time, this maybe you've got cut off when I
Yeah.
explained how I got my first pice of work experience, and
Oh, yeah.
I would. It's an interesting story.
he challenged 3,000 people
No.
to.
So I say you can bend the rules, okay? Stick, don't break the rules, but there's a lot of grey area, and sometimes you have to think outside of the box. So finish university, master's degree, molecular medicine, cancer research, very strong degree, and I was applying for jobs left, right, and centre. Nothing for months. And I'd literally gone through all of the companies in the local area, and then further out as well, and even nationally, that I'd ever wanted to work for, and I was getting nothing. And I went down to work experience or work for free. And then there was one place left, and I just left it. It was in Ealing. I won't say the name of the place, but it was in Ealing, down the road from where I lived. And I said, if this place says no, because I really wanted this place, so I kept it to the end. Then I'm in a bit of trouble. So one day, I told my brother to come with me. I wore a suit. I told him to park the car right outside of the offices, and I said, I'm going to walk in with my CV, and the first old-looking person I can find looks relatively important, I will hand the CV to, and I'll just give him my 10-second pitch.
Take this.
Yeah.
Bang.
And one or two things are going to happen. Either I'm going to get kicked out by security, or it's going to be
very embarrassing.
Very embarrassing. And I'm never going to go there, walk around there ever again. Lo and behold, I told my brother, wait in the car. I went upstairs. There was a security guard over there wearing a suit. I ignored him, just didn't make eye contact with him, walked up the stairs. Okay, I'm past level 1. I'd almost forgotten what floor of the building they were on. So then I think I went up to the 5th floor or something. Felt like ages. Got to the door. The door was locked, so I'm stuck now. A random person just opened the door to go out, and so I just snuck in over there. Right in front of me was a receptionist, and she made eye contact with me, and I thought, if I give the CV to her, this is going to go straight in the bin.
Yeah.
As she was about to say, excuse me, what do you want? I found my old guy walking right in front of me. I was like, hey, excuse me, man. I just want to say, I just finished my university education. I really want to work in this place. This is my experience. And I just went silent after that. And he looked at me and he said, wait, did you just walk past my security desk up into here with a CV in your hand to see what would happen? And I was like, right, look for a fire exit quickly. I know some martial arts, I can defend myself, yeah? And
just 18 people just start jumping on you.
And he looks at me and he goes, I go, yeah. And he goes, I like your style. Come with me. I said, what's happening here? He brought me into his office, and I remember this like yesterday. He goes, come in Monday morning. We'll even pay a little bit for your lunch and give you some like small expenses, and you can work for 3 months to get some experience in your CV. And that set up every other job that I had. That literally set it all up. So it's just something different. Everyone's going to be writing letters. Just try something different.
Just take risks.
Take a risk. What's the worst thing that would have happened? Like I would have never been able to walk around there ever again. But yeah, that was literally how I got my first piece of work.
And I think also too, don't get disheartened by failure. I mean, like our first podcast, my audio went. I could have just said I ain't doing it ever again. But do you know what I said to myself? I said, look, I just got to keep going. It's like the same thing with martial arts. If you fail at grading, keep going. If you just fail, don't let that stop you.
It's not a permanent condition, people.
Unless you become somewhat bankrupt and you have no money and now you potentially can become homeless. But realistically, let's be real. That's not going to happen if you start slow. You start off
being afraid of failure is one of the most dangerous things that you can do. It's not even the fact that you're afraid of failure. It's the fact that you've given yourself an ego to be big enough to be ashamed of a failure. We're all failed at many things in life, and you can only get better by trying and failing.
Yeah, exactly.
And you see the most successful people in the world, they are riddled with a backstory of failure upon failure. That's what brought them to where they are now. To build a champion, you look at the wins, but you look at how many losses they had as well to bring them to that place. It's nuts.
It's never too late to start doing something.
Yeah.
People start from in their late 20s or their early 30s or their late 30s doing a business or doing something. There's no point in just giving up.
Start early.
Start early, but don't be worried if you're halfway through your life. Do you know what I mean? You can still do something. Do you know what I mean? You can still make an impact in the world. It's just you have to have the drive to do it. You have to have, right, I want to do this. I want to do something. What can I do? And then you start looking at the ways that you can do that. Do you know what I mean? And that's quite key. I think a lot of people, they have the ability to do something. I think a lot of people, they could potentially help a young person they know that they're working with, or potentially set something up in their company for young people, or set something up, just in general. But it's one of them ones where I feel like they're too scared to say something because maybe it's like, oh, well, why would we do this?
Yeah, but often it's like a risk-reward benefit.
Yeah. But it never hurts to ask. If you ask a question, it's just a question. If I ask my lecturer a question, right, about the CIA, because we were talking about the CIA, one of our lecturers. Don't ask me; it was quite funny. But we started talking about that, and it's quite interesting, really. But what's bad about that? You learn something new, and then you could potentially link it.
The tip to this, asking person. Everyone sends an email, and I don't know about you. Sometimes I just delete without even looking. I scroll down and multi-delete, and it just gets caught up. When you're there in person, you have a different energy. People will feel something about you. I genuinely believe this.
If you walk in places, it's different because it's face to face. It's
plus you have to be a right ass to say no to someone right in front of your face. So it's
just go to the gym.
Emotional impact that.
Go to the gym for 2 years, bulk up, and then be like, hi.
It's also hard to say no to
hello, can you do me a favour, please?
A large mammal who can rip your head off.
It's a gorilla just walking through the door. Yeah. But yeah, just don't be scared. Just send that email or
a good one. You should don't be human gorillas.
Or send that email or create that website or look into a product. Just do something. It's always good to have a side project. I mean, especially after COVID. I mean, we all know now through all the research and all the things that's been going on, just having one source of income.
No,
you can't do that. You have to have multiple. Yeah. I mean, even if it is like a small business or something that you have on the side or something little, you need multiple.
Multiple streams. I completely agree.
Even if it's just two, you've got two.
Young people sometimes. I remember. Why was I not taught this in school? There's a multiplication factor. So you assume that you can get a house, right? And then what's the multiplication factor? Oh, your salary multiplied by 4 or 4.5. Okay, then just go to Zoopla and look for any house in your locality and look at how much it's going for. Divide it by 4, 4.5, and then the salary that you have to be on, it'll be like a CEO salary, 6 figures. And at that point, you realize, wow, I'm 21 years old and that salary is not going to happen for any time soon unless I move things around, unless I do multiple different things. So you have to, like you're saying, multiple streams. You can't just try one thing right now anyway.
Yeah, and it's always good. Make sure you're aware of your circles too. I think you don't want to be in a circle, right, which you look at and you go, you're not going to get really anywhere in life. You could get somewhere in life, but you're not doing it. Look for people in your group, right, that you're going, I could actually make a business with you. You're actually really smart. Do you know what I mean? And talk to them about it. Do you know?
100%. If you hang around, again, this is for maybe younger people, if you're hanging around with idiots, you will inevitably behave
Yeah,
like
exactly.
them. It rubs off. If you hang around with people who are a little bit more switched on and focused, it will rub off eventually. The energy becomes shared. Don't hang around with people that are going to be a drain. Just look at the things that they're doing in the
Yeah.
day. List the things that they're doing. And if they're doing things which are not in the place where you want to end up, then
Yeah,
just
don't
cut the cord.
don't worry about cutting them off, right? Because if they were really your friend, that you could message them still and talk to them,
Yeah.
and they're aware of why you're no longer seeing them.
Yeah, but you're putting your energy into a different pot with them. That's
Yeah.
the only thing. And you have a finite amount of energy and a
Exactly.
finite amount of hours in the day. So
If
that's really important.
if you want to go down one route and they're going down another, if you're really friends and that's really your friend, you can say, look, hopefully we're on the same path eventually. You go down your path, you become a success, and they live their life. Hopefully they become a success. But there shouldn't be a scared aspect of, oh, I don't want to lose out on seeing my friends or things like that. You can still do that, but it's, do they go with what you want to do?
Totally.
Do they benefit you?
Yeah.
And if they don't benefit you in all aspects, like emotionally, potentially your growth as a person, or potentially your growth in business, or even like you might see them as a family member. Sometimes you're friends with someone for so long, it's like your brother or your sister.
Mm-hmm.
That. Then you just have to say, look, mate, I'll just see you another time. Do you know what I mean? And you can't just keep going down the negative route, because what will happen is you'll get dragged along. And then as you get further dragged along, what you wanted to do is back there, and you're all the way down on another avenue, and you don't know what's going on.
Totally, 100%.
Yeah. What would you say in your journey through the pharma industry that you've learned that is quite interesting, that you wouldn't know from looking outside?
So it's a very professional industry where there's lots of moving bits to it. The question that I often get asked because I work in the pharmaceutical sector, is healthcare related questions. So they say something like, all these drugs, they cost a lot of money, and these companies are just out there to make money. Of course, they're companies like everything, right? Like the phones that you have, like the clothes that you're wearing, like the carpet that's in your house. Everyone is out to make money, but the costs in the pharmaceutical sector are extremely high, and the failure rate is extremely high. And this is one of the sectors that I work in. So I'm not going to go into crazy details of this. I'm sure people don't care about how trials and drugs are developed, but you have preclinical phase, where you're testing the drug from the lab into sort of animal models, and they can range from Drosophila, which is like a fruit fly, to dogs, to monkeys, to lab rats, obviously. And then from there, you start testing it in humans at phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3, and then it gets marketing authorization. But to put into context, one phase 3 study could cost hundreds of millions of pounds, just one, and there may be multiple required for different areas. And you have to do your phase 2s and your phase 1s and all the preclinical stuff that I mentioned, and then the lab stuff. So it can take easily over £1 billion to bring one drug to the market, and 9 out of 10 will fail from preclinical to the final step. So there's a huge machine which is working to make them come out. So when they do charge, let's say, in excess of £100,000 for a year's worth of treatment for a certain, say, cancer drug, it pays for all the failures that have come before that. The other thing that I get asked a lot is when it comes to, say, herbal and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with those things, but the way I explain it is often with, like, say, aspirin. So aspirin's actual active ingredient, I think it's salicylic acid, but it comes from the bark of the beech tree. A long time ago, I don't know how the guy figured it out. If you start chewing on this particular bark from this tree, your headache goes away, right? But it's also got a bunch of stuff in there that you don't need, like wood, like ants and stuff. So what the pharma companies will do, they'll isolate the active ingredient, the thing that's working, turn it into a pill, and they'll obviously slap some marketing on it and add a cost to it and then sell it. So a lot of pharmaceutical products are actually based on, like, naturally occurring substances. It's just that they've been refined a little bit. So, again, you can use herbal alternatives, but it's not concentrate, so to speak, and they often have other things inside of it. And sometimes, like if you're going to the herbal front, some of it has not been tested or proven to have effects. So I often say keep it simple. Between regular exercise, a balanced diet, and just getting fresh air, that's probably and rest. That's probably the best way to remain healthy.
So the pharma industry to me is quite like hocus pocusy, like really, it's like very mysterious, and because you don't really hear a lot about it. Do you know what I mean? It's very it's very mysterious, like how they work, and you have all of these memes where it's like, oh, they're like pulling the strings and everything. So realistically, right, how regulated is it? Like how
it's the second most regulated industry in the world after airlines, the aviation industry, because you don't want your plane to fall out of the sky. The pharmaceuticals, I had similar opinions going, and you don't kind of know what's going on, and all you hear about is the billions and billions of pounds or dollars that are pumped into this, and it's like a very complicated machine, and there's no overly sinister element to it, no more than you would with your iPhone or your laptop or anything, any other industry that you'd be versed with. Businesses operate in certain ways. Sometimes you need to do things which help the business function, but it's none of that like sort of oogie boogie, drinking goat's blood or none of that kind of stuff. In fact, when you go there, the roles which are in pharma or in any other industry, they have chief financial officers, they have chief marketing officers, they have a CMO, chief medical officer, they have CEOs, they have business intelligence units, they have
they got the Illuminati or they got dark room?
They don't have those people there. So, sometimes from a distance in, so it's a fair question, but you're like, no, it's just like I know the people who literally made the drug. I know the people who marketed the drug. I'm literally looking at them like they're sitting opposite my desk. I know the people who are measuring the sales. I know the people who have formulated it. So it's not literally, it's not like that. The thing is, it can have that mystique to it because you're talking about, again, vast amounts of money. Because I think one of the things we all need is healthcare, right? It's like a universal.
It's very important.
It's a universal requirement. It's not like I think you could argue maybe it's a recession-proof industry because it's not about like demand spikes going up and down. We are all going to get old. We are all going to get
You're
ill.
going to need a flu jab.
We are all going to be on the receiving end of these products. But no, there's none of that kind of stuff. It's just like any other business. In fact, it's very boring from that perspective. Like you get like your finance guys, your legal lawyers over there. You have the accountants. It's the same as anything else.
Oh, I was hoping for some guy.
No, you're hoping for something interesting.
Some guy in a black hood that sits on the table.
With like horns on the side of the head. It's right. We're going to put mercury inside of this thing to kill people now.
Shabaaz, we're going to put chips into this, test the film. That'd be hilarious.
No. The vaccine, around the vaccine, there was a lot of stuff around that. Now, there's one school of thought where you can say that pharmaceutical industry, they say, can maybe over-medicate, but there's none of the sinister stuff.
I think it's good, though. I think people that are ignorant, probably, towards how vaccines are made and how much regulation there is, I mean, they're just ignorant. You don't really...
I remember someone telling there's mercury in it, but as I understand, if you put mercury inside of something, you would see blobs of it, but it's a transparent liquid.
It's thick, isn't it?
And then someone was saying all sorts of crazy stuff. That they inject it not into your veins, into your muscles. It goes into your tissues. That's how it works. There's different types of injection. There's intramuscular, intravenous, subcutaneous. So, and I've even heard stuff like it can help track you somehow. Like there's microchips in there. Let me be very frank about this, I'm not sure. So pharmaceutical industry, big thing, but the people that make the drugs in the laboratory, those, I know it may sound cool from a distance, those are the most boring jobs and actually the most junior jobs. So in a way, you could argue a lot of the people in the lab, they're not on the business end earning like six-figure. Most of the people on the
lab,
depressed,
drinking coffee at 6 a.m. in the morning.
They're like technicians and stuff. So they're on like entry-level salaries. And are you telling me that there's thousands of these people, relatively junior people, who are putting this stuff together, and like there's like a batch of, it says chemical X, and it's just quickly putting it in when no one's thinking. It doesn't make any sense. But like, I can talk for length probably on this kind of stuff. But
guys, moral of the story is vaccines are safe.
You know what I'll say?
Don't be worried.
Between vaccines and antibiotics, and both of these tend to have negative press, but rewind 100 years ago, people's faces would rot off from bacterial infections, which can now easily be cured by like penicillin. The antibiotics and vaccines have saved more lives than the United Nations Security Council's meetings combined. Like,
well, I mean, the UN don't really do much.
no,
do they?
there's
so,
a point over there.
yeah.
But like, no, but the positive impact that they've had on the world, it can't be calculated.
Yeah. The UN kind of just goes, "You've been naughty, bad," and then they don't do anything else.
No, but literally, if you look at like what the things that would kill people back in the day, before we had these things, it's horrific.
It's like smallpox, isn't it?
Polio. Look at that. So they of modern medicine, they're like the pinnacle of inventions.
What would you say to people that say that the pharmaceutical industry is not moral because of the fact that you test on animals?
So I have a very simple response to this. It's never nice taking a life of anything. But would it rather be your brother?
Yeah.
Your mother?
Yeah.
And at this point, everyone changes their mind.
Yeah.
What, my mom? My dad?
Yeah.
Why don't we do the experiment on them? We don't have alternatives. There's things coming out which are like complex tissues where from human beings actually. So they do an autopsy and they take like a tissue and they'll keep it going and they'll inject stuff in there, but it's still not the same as a living organism. Because if I inject something into a heart, it's not the same as the entire system, and then how that system works within the rest of the body. You need living systems to test these things. And before I put it into a family member of yours, it is much better that, unfortunately, and people especially don't like things like dogs and monkeys because, you know, it's emotional, but there is a distinct difference between still an animal and a human being. And this may be controversial because, you know, some people have like, they live with 7 cats and whatnot.
Yeah.
They're not human beings.
Vegans.
They don't have the cognitive capacity. And often people say, well, actually, you know, my pet is really smart. Can it do algebra? No, it can't.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they don't have emotions and they have a degree of intelligence. A dolphin is intelligent, but can it make an iPad? No, it can't. So there's certain things. Can they write poetry? So in one very interesting thing, you know, in lots of studies done on animals, you can teach them sign language. So I think bonobos,
fruit flies are the ones that die the most, aren't they?
Yeah, they die in a day. But you can teach say a monkey sign language, and they can have the same perceived intelligence as a toddler or even like a 4 or 5-year-old child. But one question no animal has ever done in any recorded study, which is very unique to human beings from the age of 2, is asked the question why. Yeah. It's a very human trait to introspect and ask why. They may be conscious of their mortality and may be conscious of logical and rational deductive reasoning and things like this, but they do not ask why. Monkeys have never asked why. No animal has ever asked why, a curiosity which is intrinsic within a human being. If you've got like a child or a nephew or a niece, and literally from the age of 2, 3, why, it gets annoying. Why? This, I think they call it the Socratic approach to learning, but this is something very unique to a human being. So back to the original point, it's not nice. I really, really agree with this. And if there was an alternative, of course we would do that. But there is no better way to test it within a living system than use a living system which has some organs which are and ways of working which are closest to a human being. So I guess that's my thought on that.
So you work with cancer, right?
Yeah.
So what have you got any insights into the current events that are going on?
You know, so there's a lot of different things which are going in the area of cancer, but when people use the word cancer, they're talking about hundreds of sub-diseases. When people say, when are they going to cure cancer? I'm like, well, some of the cancers they can cure. It sounds like a bit of a funny example, but testicular cancer, for example, has a 90% plus cure rate. Why? You just take it out. You don't need the testicle to stay alive, right? Some cancers you can just like remove via surgery. Some cancers are very, very perceptive to the drugs. There's these PD-1, PD-L1 inhibitors. If you have certain biomarkers in your body, they can keep you going for years and years. But I think ultimately, the reason that you have cancer is because over time, there are mutations within your DNA, and they get photocopied. So you're not meant to photocopy a mutation. It's meant to get fixed. But the repair mechanism, we're keeping it very like top line here, the repair mechanisms don't see it, and it gets photocopied and photocopied and photocopied. And then before you know it, you have like an abnormal amount of tissue, and then it starts invading parts of the body and growing where it shouldn't, etc. That's very, very oversimplification even. But if you can screen people very, very regularly, and I'm talking about full screening. So now I think for some cancers, like for breast cancer, for colorectal, for ovarian, and many others, they do regular screenings at say 50 or 60, or depending if you're high risk. But if you were able, if there was a way to screen people on a yearly basis on everything, and when they start seeing abnormal cells at a very early stage, just to cut them out. It's not unless it's somewhere like in the brain where it's a bit too difficult. They start removing them. That would be one way of preventing it, or to start giving treatment early in like a prophylactic way, so to speak, to stop it growing. That's another thing that you can do. But I don't think anytime soon they'll be able to cure all like 100 and something, 200, whatever subclassifications of cancers. But rather, it will be screening so that when you find it, you can stop it in its early stage, as opposed to when it becomes, the word is metastatic, when it goes to different parts of the body. Because when it's metastatic, then it's unfortunately basically like usually game over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw something a while back about this guy. His T cells were fighting the.
Oh yeah, this
the
is
cancer.
very. So you can. I remember someone once. It wasn't actually me that came. It's called giving your white blood cells black belts, which is what you do is you take out your existing certain white blood cells, as you mentioned, macrophages you can do as well, and you put certain chemicals inside, and you effectively, really again an oversimplification, but you strengthen them so that they can kill cancer cells in like a petri dish. And they become trained now, so to speak. And then you put them back inside of the body.
Just like they've gone to a fight.
They literally went to a fight. That's literally the example. People in oncology would be smiling at this because it's very accurate. You bring them into the fight camp, then you bring them back, and now they all know how to kill cancer. And now it's technically your own cells.
Do they then
CAR
copy?
T technologies.
They copy inside
and they copy and they multiply. That's another approach.
Now, when your white blood cells are mutated and they copy, is that leukemia?
That you're very good, yeah. So this is these are hematological malignancies, and so that's you would see it as a liquid cancer. So it's in the blood, So there's problems with that as well. So most cells in the body you can grow a cancer in. You just have to mutate.
I remember reading somewhere about shrimp and cancer, or shellfish. Something about shrimp and cancer, about how the fact lobsters actually. Something about lobsters, how they copy their cells and they can live for quite a while. Is there anything that you know about that? Because I remember seeing it on there.
I can't remember. I remember I watched something about mushrooms once as well. So there's a lot of quirky things that certain animals can do. Again, this is obviously not a scientific podcast, but I know that at the end of cells, you get, I think they're called telomeres, which are repeats of gene sequencing, and they start shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. That's one of the things that can start causing mutations within the DNA. And if there was a way to maintain those sort of, let's just call it buffer regions within the DNA, that would effectively stop kind of the aging process. That's something that they can do. Nanotechnology is very interesting as well, where you literally imagine like you're doing surgery, we send a tiny little robot which can go through your body and start snipping stuff up.
So have you been looking into
But this is like far down the line right now.
What is currently are you looking at?
I think immunotherapies.
Stuff that you can talk about.
So if I give it very one word, immunotherapies. But immunotherapies covers things like you mentioned. Let's call them the white blood cells with the black belts, the fight camp ones. It covers something called PD-1, PD-L1 inhibitors.
The John Joneses of John Joneses of
to smash up. And like I said, the checkpoint inhibitors, they're something which are very interesting. And there's a bunch of other things.
What's a checkpoint?
A checkpoint inhibitor. So a cancer cell can turn off the kill me switch inside of it. So like normally when you have a mutated cell,
they die.
No, so let's just say there's a cell over here, it's been mutated. It has like a little switch on it, a receptor, which says kill me. And then you're again, oversimplifying things, but white blood cell will connect to it and be like, oh, okay, you're broken, I'm going to kill you now. But what a cancer cell does is it turns this switch off. Program death receptor 1, pretty cool name for it.
That sounds amazing.
But you can get
that is the best thing I've ever heard.
You can get inhibitors for that, so it stops that recognition from happening, and then a white blood cell will be like, oh, okay, you're broken, I'm going to now kill you. So it's very interesting. Cancer almost becomes self-aware. It's of you, it's of your body. You didn't catch it from like, it's not contagious or anything like that.
Is that why when they take cancer out, they cut the tumor and the cells around it? Because it can't go through.
So a good surgeon can excise the right amount of margin. Now this gets a bit tricky because in some tissues there's going to be an aesthetic effect. Say breast cancer, you're removing part of healthy tissue, but there can be microscopic amounts of it there. So you want to make sure you've excised all of it. You don't want it to grow again, right? In other parts of the body, it's a little bit more tricky. So the brain being a typical example. Now every
I think that's
millimeter,
quite high, isn't it?
Every part of the brain that you're removing something, a high functioning organ which is responsible for everything in the body. So you just go a millimeter too much here or there, and all of a sudden you lose your speech, or your sight goes out, or something like that. So, and it goes back to the example of, say, testicular cancer. It's a enclosed organ. It's not vital for living. You can get rid of it, and that's it.
It's a bit like you can live without your kidneys, can't you? Or one of your kidneys.
Well, with one, and then the two, there's things that you have to do. With one.
So that's quite interesting. So, what about, so when it comes to leukemia, how would you, like, obviously in your field, what are they looking at?
Leukemia is a tricky one, so I can't give. I'm not really an expert on hematological cancers. I don't know too much about them. Most of my experience has been in like the solid ones, which goes back to my first point where cancer is such a big word. It's kind of like martial arts. Well, there's so many different types, and some of them are the complete opposite of the other ones. So I don't know too much on the heme front, on hemonc.
So what on your front what is some of the breakthroughs that you're seeing?
I think, like I mentioned, the CAR T. We talked about those white blood cells. That's something which can be.
Is there research in another area where you're kind of looking at now?
Oncoviruses are interesting as well. So you can take a virus. Let's just say the flu virus. What's the flu virus very good at? Invading different parts of the body. But you scoop out the DNA, and instead of the DNA saying, right, I'm going to invade all these cells and give it the flu, you put another sort of, sometimes even RNA, which I'm not going to go into details of why they do that, but basically they put programming in there which says kill this cell which has cancer. So you're using it as a vector. It's called a viral vector, where it does the dirty job for you. It goes and spreads around the body. Normally it would be wreaking havoc, but now its payload is not the flu. The payload is kill cancer cell, and it brings it in a very targeted way to where it needs to be.
I think I heard about that with how mRNA is now
messenger.
It's really good, because I remember saying that how it could potentially cure cancer. That's a lot in the news when they say potentially cure cancer.
You need to be careful about these terms, of course. Like a lot of the things that we talk about, and it again goes back to the drug development process. When you hear about something in the lab, it can be a decade away from being in the market. So you were talking about how regulated it is. That pays testament to how regulated it is. Before a human being can, from the time between the lab. I mean, talking about early drug discovery.
How many?
It can be 20 years.
How many drugs have you witnessed just get cut or
loads? They get cut all the time. In fact, the majority of drugs will die.
Because your field is like investment, isn't
it? What we want to do is we want to get rid of identify the failures quickly, because you can't keep pumping more and more money into them, because it costs a lot of money to keep these things going through the clinic. At the same time, you want to play this balancing game of not killing it too soon, because it could potentially be a life-saving drug for a certain group of patients. So you really want to make sure that you've tested everything, but at the same time, you're not carrying dead weight, which is going to potentially, you could have put like these millions into another drug, which you could accelerate to the market and could save or improve the quality of life of tens of thousands of people.
So
it's a fine balancing.
So it sounds right. So for you in your job, what is your typical day? Or what is your typical job like description? Like, what would you do?
My job is more around. So I connect with, we call them key opinion leaders, so KOLs. So these are like, you have doctors, and then you have like the top thought leader doctors of the world. They're actively involved in research. My job is to bring as many of these together as I can, and then when we're looking at, say, this interesting drug over here, to ask them questions on that particular drug as a go no go kind of signal. Is this good? Is this bad? What do you think about this? So that's typically what my role involves.
It's quite interesting. Well, I think that's the end of the podcast. I think it's been very interesting. We've covered quite a few topics. Now, just to end, could you give us the best piece of advice you've ever been given by someone? Through your business journey or through your life?
It's not very complicated. It's the hardest step is the first. That's it. When you take that first foot forward, it doesn't matter what it is. Make the file on your laptop. Make the folder. Don't even make a file in there. Don't even order the equipment. Just that first step. Get the tape measure out. And start making a wall over. The first step is the hardest. The rest of it will snowball. The right people will come to you. The right resources will come to you. God willing, you'll be able to complete this really well. But that spark, No one can help you with that.
Mm.
Like, get off your ass, off the chair, and now just start the process. Yeah. Once you've done that, the rest of it starts to take care of itself. So literally, I know it's not, overly eloquent, but just get up and make that first step. From here, the silence of your mind where no one else can hear it, to making it verbal, putting it on a piece of paper, writing it down, making it tangible for the first time. That's the difference between zero and affinity.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and stay tuned for more. Can you share, like, and subscribe? I'm going to try to get more people onto the podcast, and as you can see, I've updated the camera. Thank you, Manjot, for giving me the camera. But hopefully we're going to be able to improve over time. In the comment section, can you please just put any advice you have, any ideas you want to be talked about, any topics you want? And yeah, if you want videos of potentially me talking about things that I'm interested in, maybe about martial arts, or me analysing some videos to do with martial arts, I could bring Shabaaz along if you wanted to do that, then let me know. Any ideas in the comments, I'd really appreciate it. Okay, thank you.
I like that last bit, 0 to infinity.